Hello and welcome back to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut an asymmetric blouse. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So here on my pattern, I have marked out all my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waist, and my top length. So to get your top length, you're going to place your tape and get 5 inches from your waistline, or you're just going to go ahead to measure your desired length. Next, I will mark my shoulder divided by 2, add half to it, making it 14 divided by 2. I have 7 plus half, 7.5. So I'll go down by 1 inch and connect it down to my shoulder, forming a shoulder slope. Now I'm going to find my chest line, which is also your armhole circumference. To get that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. What I have on that point, I'm just going to go ahead to transfer it and place, and I will go ahead to rule out a straight line at those points. So this is what I have, and I'm just going to go ahead to draw out a straight line connecting from my new chest line down to my shoulder point. Now you're going to divide your chest line into 2 by folding up your tape, and you're going to mark at that point, go in by half inch. Now you're going to mark your bust circumference divided by 4. My bust circumference is 33 divided by 4. I have approximately 8.3. Now I'm going to place my French curve, connect from that point to the half inch and connect down to my shoulder this way. So this is what I have after I'm done connecting. So the next step I'm going to take is just to go ahead to outline all my pattern. Next is to mark my dart intake. To do that is your nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I'm going to go ahead to mark it at the bust, under bust, waistline, chest line, and top length. Now I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to connect at those 3.5 inches marks that I have made. So at this point, I'm just going to readjust what I have here because it is more than 3.5 inches. And I'm going to place and I will connect, and also connect at the lower part. So after I'm done doing this, so next is to mark your dart intake. I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 inch at both sides this way, and for a plus size, go ahead and use 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to connect these lines back, drawing a straight line from my underbust down to my waistline. And after I'm done drawing this, I'm going to place my ruler and I will connect from my waist down to my top length, and I will repeat it also at the other side. So looking at what we have on this point, our cup started a bit higher, so I'm going to mark 2.5 inches from my chest line. So if you're on the busty side, you can go ahead and use 3 inches, but 2.5 is also okay. And I'll extend my dart lines. Now I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to connect this way at my under bust. After I'm done connecting, the next step is just to go ahead to mark my dart intake at the top, and I will be marking 1 inch at both sides. So if you're using this pattern as a Victorian corset, you can go ahead and mark 0.75 inch at that point. And if you're on the busty side, go ahead and mark 1.5 inches or more. You can go ahead and calculate it. I have a video on how to calculate your dart intake for a plus size. So now I'm also going to outline the other parts of my pattern and draw out the dart intake at that point. So this is what I have after I'm done drafting out. Next, I'm going to mark out my basic neckline, which is 3 inches, and from there I'll mark 1 inch from that point. So from that 1 inch I marked out away from the 3 inches, I'm going to connect it down to the lower point. And to mark that, I'm going to place my tape and I will mark 2 inches from that point. For the cup styling on top, I'm going to go ahead to blend this. Make sure this point is meeting. And from this point, I went up by 2.5. I'm going to go up by half inch and I'm going to connect it upwards this way. Next, I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to connect from the lower part down to the upper point of my pattern this way. So this is what I have after I'm done connecting, and I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to blend this out so that I won't have a sharp point at this part of my pattern. After I'm done outlining my pattern, the next step is to go ahead to draw out the cup styling at the other part. So I want to make use of a freehand sketch. So at the bust line, I'm going to come in by ½ inch, and I'm going to go ahead to connect this way. So this is what I have at this point, and I will use my marker to outline and connect it down. So at this point, if you want it to be a Victorian corset, you can just go ahead and add another dart to it. If you want it to be a corset, you can just go ahead to draw out your cup. And if you want it to be a bustier, you can just go ahead and leave it this way. Next, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 33 divided by 4. I have approximately 8.3. Measure the dart intake and replace. So you can also measure the dart intake you have at that point if you don't want to use at the upper part. And I'll add ½ inch to my pattern. Whatever I have at the chest line, take it down to your bust. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Measure the dart intake and replace. My under bust circumference is 28 inches divided by 4. I have 7. So at the waistline, I'm not going to mark exactly my waistline. I'm going to minus 2 inches from it. Then go ahead to divide it, measure the dart intake, replace, and add my sewing allowance. At the top length, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4. So I'll be adding 2 inches extra to it because this is also a conical corset, but the hip effect is not much, so you can use 1.5 also, or 2 inches. And after that, I added ½ inch for joining allowance. So in my previous videos for conical corsets, we make use of 3 inches. So for this, actually you can even add just 1 inch to it, or 2 inches. So after that, I'll go ahead to use my French curve or my curved rule to draw out my pattern. So this is what I have on this point. I'll use my marker to outline my pattern. So after now, we're going to go ahead to divide our waistline into two. So from this remaining part, I'm just going to fold it into two, and I will draw a straight line. So if you want yours to be a Victorian corset, after marking out your dart lines, you can just leave it and just connect it straight up to the upper part of your pattern. Now we are going to go ahead to place our French curve from our under bust, and we are going to connect it this way. So this is what I have on this point, and going to the side of this pattern, between your armhole and your bust circumference, you're going to divide it by 2 mark. Place your French curve, and you're going to connect all the way to the lower part. So next, I'm going to go ahead to use my marker to mark it out, and I'm going to label my cup as AB and label here as center and side. So the next step is to go ahead to draw out the asymmetric lower part of this dress, and for that I'm going to place my tape and come down by 2 inches. So the 2 inches is not a standard, it can come down by 3 inches or more. So I'm going to go ahead to blend my pattern paper, and I'm going to go ahead to connect my pattern this way. So watch me as I draw this out. So first you need to make use of your pencil. In case you're not okay with what you have, you can just go ahead to readjust it. After drawing out my pattern, the next step is to mark ½ inch from the center, because you're going to be creating a lacing bar for this particular dress. So you're going to connect from that point down to your underbust. So you're going to join this pattern together, and it's going to give you the space to create a lacing bar at that place. That is to insert your eyelet at that point after you're done joining it together. Sorry. Now I'm just going to use my marker to mark it out to make it more visible. So with this, we're done drafting out the front pattern, and the next step is to go ahead to cut out our pattern. So if you have any question regarding this particular tutorial, please leave your question at the comment section. And please don't forget to follow me on my second YouTube channel, which is Draft with Max. So for the draping at the front part of the dress, you're going to drape it from one side of your cup on the right to the left side of your cup. So after I'm done cutting out my pattern, this is what I have, and the next step will be moving over to the back pattern of this dress. So for the back pattern, I have marked out all the basic measurements just like I did at the front part. So ignore this. This is actually the marker from the front part of the pattern. Now I'm going to mark the neckline of 3 inches and mark 1 inch away from that, just like we did for the front pattern. And for the back pattern, I'll be using 2.5 inches for the chest line, that is the lower part. And I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to go ahead to connect. Now this is the yoke of my pattern, and the next step is just to mark 0.25 inches from the back. So at the front we didn't do that because the cup is a little higher. So while sewing, you can just take it out from the shoulder point. So next, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, just like we did at the front. And I'm going to place my ruler and I'll connect all those dots on those points. So next, I'm just going to go ahead to use my marker to outline this and label my yoke. So now we are going to go ahead to mark our darts. To mark our dart intake, I'm going to be marking 1/2 inch at both sides and I will draw out my dart. So at the upper part, I did not extend my dart very well, so I'll go ahead to do that. Next, I will mark my bust circumference, which is 33 divided by 4. I have roughly 8.3, and I'll add my sewing allowance. Mark my under bust circumference, measure the dart intake, replace it, and add my sewing allowance. Now at the waistline, I'm going to use the same waist measurement I used in front, and I'll measure the dart and also replace it, add my sewing allowance. To the back, I'll mark my hip circumference, which is 40 divided by 4, mark the 2 inches and add 1/2 inch for my sewing allowance. So I did mention the measurement for my under bust. My under bust is 28 inches divided by 4. I have 7 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect my pattern this way. Next is to mark your lacing bar area. So I'll be using 1.5. So 1.5 is not a standard measurement. I prefer using 1.5 so that my back won't be too open. So I'm just going to go ahead to connect this, and I'm going to make a dot at that point also to indicate that it is my lacing bar area. But before doing that, I'll come down by 1/2 inch and connect it back. So this is so that my lacing bar area won't be popping up when I'm putting on my dress. So I'm just going to go ahead and outline it this way and outline the rest of my pattern. So after I'm done outlining my pattern, I want to go ahead to draw out the lower part of this dress. So by the lacing bar area, I want it to go up a bit because that is the center, and so that when you're sitting down it might not disturb you. So I'll divide what I have here into 2 and mark, and I'll come down by 2 inches from there, or 2.5. So just do what works for you at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect, and this is what my lower part of this dress looks like, and I'm going to outline. So with this, I'm done drafting out this pattern, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut it out. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to join us in our next video. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for supporting my channel.